Hello, my name is James Moffett, the host of Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. The following videos are sponsored by the JBS local chapter of Dorchester and Berkeley counties in South Carolina. JBS hosted attorney Michael Rose, a 1969 graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy, retired South Carolina State Senator and President of the South Carolina chapter of the U.S. AFA Association of Graduates. His presentation was labeled Habits of Honor, Faith, and Patriotism. There are 8 short videos in this series which will be labeled Video 1 through 8.
Studies and various versions about race and law, feminism, postmodernism, and so forth. And then in Brazil, there was this Paulo Freire. They came out with various theories and writings and wrote these additional books. The one on the bottom right, Brutal Minds, is about how higher education is infiltrated by Marxism. Stanley Ridgely, and I'm almost done reading Dr. Stanley Ridgely's other book. It's a great book called EEI Exposed as a concept. This is a very, I highly recommend reading this book. Now, let me give you a couple of data points that I think may shock you. There was a study of how frequently certain terms appeared in media. And you'll see, like in the upper left, you'll see a bunch of blue dots, and it says the term systemic racism, and it measures scientifically how often that was used in various years, decades. But starting with Obama's second term, you notice how the blue line shoots up, the upper left? That means systemic racism is dramatically being used in the media, more and more. And then in the upper right, you got unconscious bias. I never heard that until the last 5 years, but same thing. Shot up 2012, Obama's second term. And then other things like privilege, diversity and inclusion, whiteness, white supremacy. Understand, this is all very deliberate. This is not organic. It's not the citizens going around here saying, hey, I got a new idea. This is being forced deliberately on people and brainwashing your children in particular, because after all, they got to do is get one generation brainwashed to take over the world. Notice how race relations deteriorated, starting with Obama's second term. The blue and the red line show the answers of white adults in the blue line and black adults in the orange line about the question, would you say race relations between black and white people are very good, somewhat bad, and very bad? And you see that starting in 2015, the blue line and the red line start going down so that fewer people in the American public are saying that relations are good. But notice all these vertical yellow bars here. That shows the number of diversity, equity, inclusion officers hired by higher education and hired by companies. In other words, the more we talk about how bad racism is, the more people are mad about it. And the more demoralized they are. Now this book, Irresistible Revolution, Marxism's Goal of Conquest and the Unmaking of the American Military, was written by Matthew Lohmeyer. This is the only book I've ever read twice. Matthew Lohmeyer was a lieutenant colonel in the Space Force. He was destined to be a general. He had been the aide-de-camp. There's only one aide-de-camp to a 4-star general. He was truly outstanding, but he was an expert on China. He spent a lot of time in China. And he speaks Mandarin. So he wrote this book, and he spoke about it on one podcast. And he was fired as lieutenant colonel in the Space Force as a squadron commander. And then I became his lawyer. So he and I met with Senator Cotton, we met with Senator Cruz, I helped him with his resignation. I saw him last week in the Pentagon. He went, and President Trump nominated him, and the Senate approved him becoming the Undersecretary of the Air Force. That's the #2 position in the entire Air Force. That outranks every general. So in 5 years, he's gone from just being Lieutenant Colonel to being the #2 person in the Air Force, in charge of all personnel matters in the Air Force. So people are, and one of the things he points out in the book, that when he was a squadron commander, he would interview people who were leaving the Air Force, the enlisted people. And he'd ask the males, why are you leaving the Air Force? I'm tired of being called a racist. That was the answer to it. And then he asked the females, why are you leaving the Air Force? And especially the black females. And he'd say, well, I wanted to serve my country. I didn't realize we were racist, and it was racist until I got in the Air Force, and it taught me it was racist. Now, people are not going to, look, recruitment was dramatically down, retention was dramatically down, morale was down, and these Marxists have us fighting each other instead of fighting our external enemy. And further, just think about the COVID vaccine. If you applied for a religious or medical exemption, and then it's got to be approved by this person and that person and that person, and then when it's denied, you're going to appeal, and then if you lose the appeal, then maybe you're going to be court-martialed, or maybe you're going to get a bunch of bad ratings, and then you're not going to get promoted, and then you're going to object to that. And so now you've got people getting out, thousands of people being thrown out. So we're fighting each other, which is exactly what Marxism was designed to do, create this division. Now I'm going to read 2 things out of the 2025, this year, National Education Association Handbook. Quote, this is the President of the NEA, Handbook, page 11. My fellow NEA members, we knew that if pro-public education candidates did not remain in the White House, right-wing attacks against students, educators, families, and communities would intensify. That possibility has become a reality, and we are now in the midst of a power grab by Donald Trump and his billionaire friends, unlike anything we have seen in our lifetime. Now, the second thing on page 15 by Kim Anderson, NEA Executive Director, says, quote, like other directors, is betting that this formula will instill enough fear in the American people that we will begin complying with authoritarian rhetoric and edict, even before the constitutional challenges are settled by the few impartial courts that remain. All this is propaganda. All this is ideology. So, the objective of this Marxism, of this DEI, this critical race theory, is to create and exploit racial grievances that cause division within historic countries. You will see that in like the 20s, 30s, and 40s, there was an attempt in America to cause division based on economic and class. And that was successful in other countries. But it didn't work in America because we had a strong middle class. So they switched to race. So now it's race. Now, I'm going to show you a second video here about what happened to our military. And I would urge you to watch this. This is a great video, I think. Okay, here we go.